Hi everyone, I'm Andy Roberts. Please excuse the mess. And this is my first time recording in this manner from my computer with a webcam on my headset. Usually I record on my phone, so the quality is poor. Please excuse that. Also, I don't know how to edit videos, so I'm probably not going to try. Um, I have a lot of notes to follow. That's why I'm doing it this way instead of on my phone. This will be my longest video so far, I think. And the topic is Benny Lewis versus perfectionism. That is, in the polyglot community, we're making a war against perfectionism. Perfectionism is the enemy of language learning, and it comes in many forms. You see a lot of it in negative comments under people's videos, and negative attitudes towards language learners or language learning, um, uh, and from procrastination and so forth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about perfectionism first, different examples of it, and then how Benny Lewis has been at the forefront of the war against perfectionism. First of all, an example of perfectionism is aiming for a native-like fluency, native-like proficiency, I mean, where you're trying to speak as well as a native speaker or almost, otherwise you're wasting your time learning a language. That is perfectionism, and I don't know where that comes from. Um, you, if you persist, you'll eventually get good enough to use a language, so and people will understand you and you can get a job in it, then why do you need to be like a native? Really, you're going to go back and start your life over in the foreign country and go to school there and be under the all the cultural constraints and problems of living in that country. Um, so no, that's a form of perfectionism. Also, fossilization is a big thing, where uh, people hear about studies done in classrooms saying that if they learn a bad habit, they never unlearn it. Well, in a classroom, you're going to have a lot of students that don't want to be there, or just maybe they want to learn the language, but they only want to put out the minimum effort. So they're not going to take the effort to unlearn bad habits, and it is hard to unlearn bad habits. But if you wait until you've got everything perfect, you're never going to speak the language, which is what usually happens. The fear against of fossilization is a form of perfectionism. Um, Another form of perfectionism is expecting to be really good at a language quickly. I remember I used to get emails, not from Pimsleur Corporation, but from people on their affiliate program who wanted to gain quick money by selling a lot of Pimsleur programs to people. So they would spam the internet and give us great promises about being advanced in a language after 30 days. Pimsleur Corporation itself wasn't doing this, I don't think, but being bombarded by these kinds of emails gives the people the impression that they can become advanced quickly, and then when they can't, then they give up. So that's a form of perfectionism. Pronouncing perfectly with no foreign accent. A lot of people don't want to get rid of their accent. The way they pronounce any language is part of their identity, their cultural identity, and they don't want to lose that. Other people just have a lot of trouble. For me, it took me decades to learn the French R, and I'm still not quite that great at it. Um, uh, you're going to likely have an accent, but people can still understand you. You can still understand them, as long as you're reasonable with your pronunciation. So work on pronunciation. Obviously, from the beginning is best, but don't expect to pronounce perfectly with no native accent. Um, Another form of perfectionism is that people only take classes from a teacher or a tutor, and they're not going to try to learn on their own. That's a form of perfectionism. Actually, classrooms tend to be inefficient ways to learn. A teacher can't adapt to every individual's way of learning, every individual's speed of learning. Um, so you may have some students that pick up a concept quickly and others that still struggle with it, and so they might slow down for those slow students, and then the quicker students may have trouble with that, and then the situation may be reversed later for something else. Um, so it's the teacher is not the only way to learn. Expecting your teacher or course to teach you the language. No, you can you can only learn a language. People can't teach it to you. They can provide what's now called affordances for you to learn, but you actually have to do the learning yourself. It takes your effort on your part. Um, And oftentimes only you can know what you really need to learn, and your teacher does or tutor doesn't necessarily know that. Hunting for the perfect course or textbook for you. You might buy lots and lots of courses before you finally find one that's close to perfect for you. And in the meantime, you've spent a lot of money and you haven't learned anything. So start with, buy 2 or 3 things, pick 1 or 2 of your favorites and just get going. Over time, you can find better materials. That's great. But that's a kind of procrastination and a waste of money. Um, Learning passively, that is, you can just turn on YouTube videos or movies or whatever in your language, or just live abroad in the foreign country and hear, have the language, be exposed to the language, and learn that way, or learn in your sleep, all that kind of stuff. Those are not true. Likewise, multitasking, that you can be texting on your phone or sending and receiving emails while you're doing a lesson. That's not, I don't even call that multitasking. Multitasking for me would be like folding your clean laundry while you do a lesson, or if you have the maybe assembling something with Legos, or doing some kind of puzzle with your hands, sewing or knitting while you're learning. That could be multitasking, but something that requires a lot of your attention, even driving and heavy traffic, no, that's not multitasking while you're learning. That you need to be learning, that you can only learn a language while you're abroad, or you have to go abroad from the beginning to learn a language, and you're just going to quick it up. No, that's not true. And expecting polyglots to be advanced in all their languages and not rusty in any of them, that's perfectionism too. Someone says, "Oh, I'm a polyglot. I speak 10 languages." Well, they're going to speak a couple of them, maybe high or high intermediate level, and then the others down to total beginner level. So those are their 10 languages, but still they can converse in enough of them that they can call themselves polyglots. Which people disagree on the numbers, but a lot of people are coming down to the number 4 usually. You got a monoglot, what is it called? Bilingual, trilingual, and then you're not going to use the word quadrilingual, so you'll use the word polyglot. Um, and if you can converse in 4 or more languages, or whatever language number you set, maybe some people are saying 3, some people are saying 7, um, but a lot of people will agree on 4. But then you're going to speak a lot of other languages that you're still a beginner at, but that doesn't make you not a polyglot. So these are different examples of perfectionism that get in the way of language learning. Now, Benny Lewis, to me, is the greatest warrior against perfectionism. I believe he does have his faults. I'm not going to go into those here, but I do probably, because I got this purpose of this email. See, I'm not going to edit this. Sorry about this. Of this video is to talk about how Benny Lewis fights against perfectionism. In my opinion, nobody in the polyglot community has done more to combat perfectionism than Benny Lewis. And I'll go through some points on that. First of all, his blog and first book he wrote are called Fluent in 3 Months. And so the first point I want to bring up is that fluency is different from native-like proficiency. People interpret fluency in different ways, but the perfectionist way of interpreting it is speaking as well as a native, or almost as well. But according to Benny Lewis and many of us in the polyglot community, fluency is more like fluidity. That yes, you can get your points across. You know enough language to be able to carry on a conversation, and that is fluency. And then proficiency may come after fluency. You might be fluent at a very low level. When I was in Korea, I could go into a shop and buy things. I could answer simple questions. How old are you? Are you married? And to that level, I was fluent. But I still was very low level of the language. Now, I read the first couple of chapters, few chapters of Fluent in 3 Months. And in that part, Benny is very clear about what he means by fluency, what he means by 3 months, how much time are you spending each day during those 3 months, what kind of commitment it takes, what kind of materials it takes. what kind of approach it takes to get to that fluidity within 3 months. He's very open about that. Also, he probably brings it up a lot in his blog and his videos. So he's not it's not like clickbait exactly. He's trying to teach people what fluency is and what you can do if you really put your mind to it and have some time per day. Um, let's see. This is based on his personal experience doing a lot of 3 month language projects. So it's not something like hype where he's saying, "Oh, this is what can be done," hypothetically. He's talking about what he has done and what other people can reproduce their own way. Um, People complain about Benny's commercialism. That's a kind of perfectionism where people are just sick and tired of seeing advertising all the time. But see, Benny doesn't constantly try to sell his products. Um, he's more about getting out the ideas, dispelling myths, and getting out the ideas of what it takes to learn a language, and help people to get in the habit of learning on their own, and not always trying to sell his products. There are some people that it seems like every video they're trying to sell their product, but he's not one of them. Um, he actually started his blog, I believe, he said once, before he wrote his book. He provided free stuff first, and his Fluent 3 Months blog was not meant to sell anything originally. And even now, he has his premium course and his well right and the products for sale on the bottom left, but not, well, maybe on the front page. I didn't scroll down the whole front page. Um, Maybe on the front page there's some stuff for sale, but you go through his blog and you don't feel like you're constantly being sold stuff. It's definitely not his videos, which is what I mostly follow. His books are affordable, anywhere from $2 Kindle for his Fluent 3 Months book, to $100 for Add One Challenge, or $97 for his um, uh, premium materials, whatever they are exactly. His language hacking textbooks cost $14 on Amazon or $20 elsewhere. His paperback Fluent 3 Months book is $10 on Amazon, a little bit more elsewhere. So, unless you live, I mean, if you're completely broke or you live in a poor country, obviously, they may not be affordable to you, but a lot of people can afford the $2 Kindle book. And anyone with internet access, that would be the big expense, can watch his videos, read his blog, lots of stuff in his blog. Um, he's not as commercial as people may originally think. Um, and while I'm on this point, some people think that everything should be free. So he's saying that teachers should work for free, social workers should work for free, or he's saying that the government should provide everything, and then we don't have freedom over what we're going to teach. The government's going to tell us that, and then pay for the teaching. No, you shouldn't be saying that. So don't expect everything to be free. The things that are available for free out there, such as Duolingo, are provided by lots of volunteers and donors. And unless you're one of them, you shouldn't be expecting other people to do the same, because you're being a hypocrite then. Um, you're creating a double standard and say, I want everything for free, but everyone else should pay for it for me. That's not good. Are you also saying nobody should do what they love for a living? That you shouldn't base a career or a business around what you love to do. I have a sister who builds arts and crafts and then sells them. Should she give them away for free? No. Well, are you saying just because it's education it should be different than that? I don't agree. Um, Benny started off as an engineer, and he did lots of other jobs and worked in various countries, used his languages, and, well, mostly English for engineering, I suppose, but some of his languages too, at least Spanish, I think. I don't know. But no, it wasn't Spanish. I don't remember. Um, but he's now doing what he loves, which is helping other people learn languages. And so he needs to make money off of that. So he does provide goods and services. He has a sale 2 or 3 times a year where he may try to sell a lot of things, but most of the time, when I watch him on videos, he's not trying to sell anything. Um, and so, yeah, I don't consider him as commercial as other people do. What about clickbait? The Fluent 3 Months sounds like clickbait. Well, maybe, but it's giving him a platform to teach what fluency means and what people can do. So it's really the way to start the conversation for him. So maybe think of it as clickbait, or maybe not. I can't read his mind, so I don't know exactly what he had in mind. Um, Now, he talks a lot about excuses people make for learning language, for not learning languages. I don't have the talent. I'm too old. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. And he goes into each of those excuses one at a time, and helps people to overcome them. Um, these are different kinds of perfectionism, really. Um, Now, one of his main points is if you wait until you're ready to speak, you may procrastinate speaking forever. I remember when I was learning French, I didn't like my pronunciation, especially the way I pronounced the R. I thought I sounded ugly. French people, when they speak, sound beautiful, but when I speak French, I found ugly. So I didn't practice as much as I should have in conversation. Uh, and this is a problem a lot of us struggle with. If you wait until you're ready to speak, you might never speak. You know, you're trying to learn all the grammar first, trying to learn thousands of words first, and then you'll try to speak. No, you'll quit before then. So now, if you're an experienced language learner, then you can delay speaking you are until a certain point. You have a certain criteria. Okay, when I reach this criteria, then I'm going to speak. In my case, my first goal is to talk to myself in my foreign language. When I can talk for several minutes fluidly, and I said, "Wow, I just spoke for 7 minutes in my target language, and it didn't feel like it was that much effort." That's when I start practicing conversation with other people. So I don't converse from day one, but I do speak from day one. Even just repeating after videos. I'm sorry, after people speaking the language in videos or audio courses. Um, uh, but for him, speaking from day one means if you have to talk like Tarzan, it's not even make grammatical sense. It's just to get your point across and learn the grammar gradually and get better and better at speaking. Um, then that's a better approach than putting it off. I mean, if you just want to read a language, that's fine. But if you actually want to converse, then practice conversation, um, or at least do stuff that will get you closer and closer to it, not stuff like exercises in a textbook that won't really help you to converse. Um, Listening, speaking, reading, writing, conversation, these are individual skills that have to be worked on. If you just spend a year listening and reading, you're not practicing conversation during that time. So do it at your risk. You might end up quitting before that year is up. Um, you might end up switching to another language. You might get really stressed out in your life, and just you never get around to conversation. So if you're not experienced in learning language, his advice is speak from day one, and that's where the Fluent in 3 Months is based around, is the speak from day one philosophy. You don't have to follow it. It can actually be quite stressful. He actually said it once. It's not for everyone, but he's providing it there for people as an alternative to, especially to traditional language learning, what we call traditional language learning. Um, let's see. Practice conversation with a tutor, or if you can't afford a tutor, a conversation exchange partner as soon as you can. And in his case, each week, figure out what your weakest skill is that's making it hard for you to converse, and master that skill. It may be pronunciation, maybe like tones in Chinese. It may be grammar, a particular area of grammar that's just holding you up. It may be your vocabulary in a certain area is weak, and just whatever it is, he picks that skill and works on it for 1 week, and then he practices conversation, of course, while he's doing it, and then when he feels that he's made some improvements, then the next week he says, okay, what's my greatest need this week, and that's part of his Fluent 3 Months approach. Let's see. Another thing he does is create a script. He says create a script of things you can say in conversation, things about your own hobbies, interests, family, work, lifestyle, etc. Um, uh, Textbooks aren't usually going to do that for you. The closest I've found is there are some textbooks that will cover a different topic of conversation in each chapter, and will provide a lot of vocabulary and a little bit of grammar, um, uh, and then go on to the next topic, the next chapter. By the time you finish 30 chapters of the book, chances are some of those chapters will be things you actually want to talk about in conversation, and it'll also help you to understand people that are a little bit that are talking about different topics that are not interested in the same topic as you are. An example of that is Dos Mundos, beginning Spanish textbook. Also, the now very outdated and hard to find Living Language Ultimate series is also based on that philosophy. But most textbooks aren't designed that way, and so even his language hacking textbooks are actually designed to help you create your own script where you write down things you would actually want to say in conversation, um, and then have a native speaker check it to make sure you wrote it correctly, and then memorize it, and then you have that available for use. Eventually, you get advanced enough, you don't need these kinds of helps, but definitely it's something that we can all use. Um, Lucas Spaghetti actually goes a step further now, and he writes everything in English or his native language, and then has translated into his target language, and then memorizes that, and has somebody record it, the audio too. Um, but uh, but generally, we're talking about writing in your target language what you want to say, and then having it fixed by a native speaker. Um, which you can now do fairly cheaply or free on the internet. Um, let's see. Another thing he does is, even though we're talking about speaking fluidly, he does speak slowly, especially in the beginning, to give himself time to think, so he doesn't do the and the ah. And for me, I do a lot of listening and repeating, and often the almost native speed recordings. So I'll say things really fast, and then I'll have a long pause while I think about what to say next, and then I'll say it quickly. And so people say, "Wow, Andy speaks quickly in his target language," but it's a struggle for me. So he gets around that by speaking slowly, and that's just you know his way of doing it. He's rusty in many languages because he does 3 month projects, and then he spends the rest of the year gradually working on all his languages. But you can't. I know from my experience, you can't work on all of your languages simultaneously if you've already worked a lot. I'm up to my eighth, ninth languages now. It's like so a lot of my languages are on hold, and I'll get back to them eventually. So even my French, which is my most advanced language, I'm too rusty to converse in it right now. Although it would not take much to get me back to where I can converse well. Um, so just because you might meet him somewhere and try to speak in one of the languages that he studied, Spanish, and maybe he's rusty in Spanish, just expect that that's part of being a polyglot. It's what we call part of hashtag polyglot problems. Um, Now, people go as far as to think of him as a fraud, and but when I love especially his question and answer videos, um, where people ask him whatever questions about language learning or about a particular topic, and he answers them. And I can tell by his answers that he has a lot of experience learning languages, especially on his own. And um, so, he can't answer every question, obviously. People do ask tough questions, but uh, it's obvious that he has a lot of experience. So I would not call him a fraud. Um, okay, so in conclusion, I consider, even though I wouldn't do things the way Benny does it, I do try to get to a certain criteria before I start conversation practice. Um, I don't want to speak like Tarzan. I do want to learn the grammar first. I do focus on uh, pronunciation early. Well, I think he does too. But um, I, um, I I just don't do things the way he does it. And I do realize that he's rusty in most of his languages. Um, but he really has, at one point or another in his life, learned a lot of languages to some extent or other, and he's known to be good at some of them. So um, to me, he is a polyglot. It's fine, though a little bit strange that he calls his blog and book Fluent in 3 Lines. He's fighting against perfectionism, and that's the main reason he does it, more than clickbait, I think. Um, Keep in mind, a lot of the things on his blog are written by other people, so it's not always just him trying to gain attention. He has a team working for him, which don't always get the credit. I don't even know who all of them are, but they help out tremendously, and and he acknowledges that. So he's not trying to, you know, gain limelight all the time. He is a clown. He does clown around a lot, what we used to call a ham. Um, but there's nothing wrong with that, of course. So to me, Benny Lewis is one of the best spokespeople for the foreign language learning community, the polyglot community, um, the language enthusiasts, um, along with a lot of, well, names escape me when I try to remember them. There are a lot of people that they aren't like Luca Lampariello and or Tim Donor, and there's like amazing in the languages, you know, even not everybody's in the polyglot community is like that. Most of us aren't. So he's a great spokesperson for us. He's a great warrior fighting the war against perfectionism, excuses, misconceptions, and he's earning a living doing this, but without being constantly trying to sell stuff. So I do not think of him as a fraud. I do not think of him as somebody who rubs me the wrong way. Um, I don't always agree with him. I don't always do things his way, but I understand why he does them, and I respect him. I admire him for that. So this is my speech on uh, Benny Lewis versus perfectionism, um, and I hope you can see my perspective better now. Um, Take care. Thanks for watching.